How do you know that you are loved? I asked this question at church a few weeks ago, and I got a lot of different answers. Some people said, well, they buy me gifts. Others said things like, well, they said kind words to me. There's so many different ways we can know that we're loved, and we learn that at a young age so that we then learn how to go out in this world and love others. The best example, obviously, of how we are loved comes from this guy right here. June is the month of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It's an ancient Catholic devotion where we reflect on the immense love that Jesus has for us. And what kind of love is that? The church teaches Jesus taught us and continues to teach us that the greatest form of love is the cross. The self-sacrifice is to going to the end for someone. The devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus then began with Saint Margaret Mary in the 17th century, but it began even earlier than that with figures like St. Francis of Assisi in the 13th century, reflecting on the holy wounds of Jesus. It was an attempt to go back to and to emphasize the humanity of Jesus, that he was with us, that he healed and he cared and he loved us on earth. This devotion has always meant a lot to me because from a very early age, I experienced truly the love of God. And I continue to do so very powerfully to this day. This love of God is how I knew that he was real. When I would pray or go to Mass, I would just feel his love wash over me. Now, I knew that my family loved me, that people around me loved me, but it always occurred to me, even then, that no one can love us quite like Jesus does. So the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus is then in June every year. This year it's June 28th. It's always on a Friday, the day that Jesus died on the cross. The second reading for the feast this year is Romans chapter 5, verse 5 to 11. And just a few highlighted verses. God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. For while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. God proves his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God's love is most powerful in our lives when we are weak, when we admit we are sinners, when we admit we need help. And isn't that what real love is? It's easy to love somebody who is nice to you, but someone who is a sinner, someone who's weak and not perfect and maybe difficult to get along with, Jesus singles them out first, searches them out first. The gospel for the feast this year is leaving the 99 righteous sheep and seeking out the one lost sheep. And so I try to model my life with the love of Jesus, both in admitting my own weaknesses and reaching out to love those who are at those weak moments in their lives. I was ordained then as well 10 years ago on the Feast of the Sacred Heart in 2009. It was June the 19th. Our cathedral in our diocese is Sacred Heart Cathedral, and so our diocese has a great devotion as well to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This year, the Feast of the Sacred Heart, as I mentioned, is June 28th, and we have an ordination coming up again this year. Deacon Tkachuk will be ordained as a priest, and so I encourage you to come out to that celebration this year. In the meantime, what can families do to learn more about the love, the heart of Jesus? One, you can consecrate your families, your homes to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. How do you do this? You can gather together on that Friday night or any night, say a prayer, ask the Lord to increase your love for one another and for the world. Say a prayer of consecration to the Sacred Heart, and place a statue or an image of the Sacred Heart in your home to invite Jesus to take possession of our lives, of our hearts, to protect us and to care for us as well. You can pray for priests as well. The novena to the Sacred Heart starts on June 19th, the day of my anniversary for my ordination, and it's prayed then for 9 consecutive days leading up to the Feast of the Sacred Heart. And so many blessings. May God be with you through the month of June as you continue to pray to be inflamed with the love that Jesus has for you.